You don't lose to a toxic person when you stay calm. You lose when their mood becomes the steering wheel for your nervous system. Most fights aren't started by the words. They're started by the micro panic your body feels when someone tries to pull you into their emotional weather. And there's one weirdly simple sentence that ends most escalating conversations without sounding weak. I'll give it to you later, because first you need to understand why the usual advice, just ignore them or be the bigger person, fails in real life, especially when the person is a coworker, a family member, or someone you can't fully avoid. Here's the pattern. Toxic behavior thrives on two fuels: attention and access. Attention means emotional engagement, explaining, defending, reacting, proving. Access means proximity, time, availability, and opportunities to poke you. If you cut attention but keep access, they keep trying. If you cut access but keep attention, like sending long texts from a distance, you're still feeding the loop. The goal isn't to win. The goal is to stop being easy to hook. Before the hacks, take a two-line self-test. Think of the person you're dealing with. When they speak, do you feel your chest tighten or your face heat up within the first 5 seconds? And afterward, do you replay the conversation in your head like you're trying to find the perfect comeback that would finally make them reasonable? If yes, your body is already learning a rule. This person is a threat. That doesn't mean you're fragile. It means your brain is doing its job. In psychology, this is often explained by threat detection systems that prioritize safety and status. A sharp tone, a smirk, a loaded question, those can read like danger cues even when nothing physically unsafe is happening. Your nervous system responds first, then your words scramble to catch up. So the first hack is about taking the steering wheel back before you speak. A quick vignette. A 29-year-old male project manager told me he'd walk into meetings confident and walk out feeling 6 inches tall. One colleague didn't even have to insult him directly. She'd do it with concern. Are you sure you understand the timeline? I just worry you're missing details. In front of everyone. He'd either snap or he'd over-explain until he sounded guilty. Both options made him look worse. What changed everything wasn't a better argument. It was a better physiological starting point. The hack is to delay your first real sentence. Most people try to respond fast to prove competence. That backfires because speed is often a stress response. When you answer quickly, you're not choosing words. You're discharging adrenaline. The other person feels that urgency and interprets it as leverage. Ah, I can move them. Instead, buy yourself 8 seconds. Not awkward silence, controlled pacing. You do it with what I call a neutral buffer, a short, calm phrase that signals you heard them, but you're not biting. Okay, I hear you. Let me think. Say that again. Then you breathe out longer than you breathe in. The long exhale is not mystical. It nudges your body toward a calmer state, which makes your voice lower and your face softer. That alone reduces escalation. People mirror the energy you bring more than they follow the logic you present. Here's the key. Your buffer phrase is not a concession. It's a break. If you want the minimum viable version of this whole video, something you can do in 2 minutes, this is it. 8 seconds, one neutral buffer, one long exhale. You're basically telling your brain, we are not in a chase scene. Now, the second hack is counterintuitive. Stop trying to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you. A lot of toxic dynamics run on what psychologists call reinforcement. If every time they jab you, you provide a big emotional explanation, you're accidentally rewarding the jab with importance. Even if your explanation is correct, the pattern is poke, get attention. That's the real game. So you shift from explaining to structuring. Structuring means you respond like a policy, not like a debate. Not cold, just clear. Instead of, that's not what I meant, here's why, and you're being unfair, you use a boundary that describes what will happen next, not what they should feel. I'm not going to discuss this in that tone. If this stays disrespectful, I'm ending the conversation. I'm available to talk about solutions. I'm not available for insults. Notice what's missing. You're not asking permission. You're not diagnosing them. You're not calling them toxic to their face. You're simply naming the condition required for access to you. This works because you're moving the conversation from identity to behavior. Toxic people often want identity fights. You're incompetent. You're selfish. You're too sensitive. If you argue identity, you're trapped. Identity has no finish line. Behavior has a finish line. And this is where most people mess up. They set a boundary like it's a wish. Could you please stop? That's a request. Requests are fine with healthy people. With chronic boundary pushers, requests are often treated as openings for negotiation. A real boundary has a lever, a specific action you will take. If you're thinking, but that sounds harsh, remember, clarity feels harsh to someone benefiting from your confusion. Now for a pattern interruption. Let's do a quick micro rehearsal. Say this out loud, quietly, wherever you are. I'm not doing this conversation like this. Again, I'm not doing this conversation like this. One more time, slower. Did you feel that little wave of discomfort? That's your system learning a new identity. Someone who doesn't have to earn safety by performing. Okay. Third hack, don't fight their words. Fight the frame. Toxic people are often good at dragging you into a frame where you lose no matter what. They use loaded questions, false choices, and emotional traps. Loaded question. Why are you always so defensive? If you answer, you accept the premise that you're defensive. False choice. Are you going to admit you messed up, or are you going to keep lying? Either option makes you wrong. Emotional trap. If you cared, you'd do what I want. Now disagreement equals cruelty. If you respond inside their frame, you're basically playing chess on a board they designed. So you step out of the frame with what psychology often calls meta-communication, communicating about the communication. You name the process, not the accusation. Interesting. That question assumes I'm the problem. I'm happy to talk about what happened, but not from that premise. I'm not choosing between those two options. Here's what I can agree to. You're connecting my care to compliance. I care, and I'm still saying no. This is powerful because it changes the emotional geometry. Instead of you versus them, it becomes both of you versus the dysfunctional pattern. That reduces defensiveness in normal people, and it exposes the tactic in manipulative ones without you sounding like you're calling them names. Here's another subtle reason this works. When you name the tactic, you remove its invisibility. A lot of toxic behavior relies on plausible deniability. I'm just asking. I'm just being honest. When you gently label the structure, loaded, false choice, guilt link, you're turning on the lights. And you can do it with a calm curiosity tone, which is disarming. Not sarcastic, not smug, calm, almost documentary. Help me understand something. Are you asking for a solution, or are you trying to assign blame? That question alone forces a fork. If they say solution, you move to problem solving. If they say blame, you can opt out. I'm not doing blame. We can talk later if you want solutions. Now we're at the fourth hack, and it's the one most people skip because it's boring, until it saves you. Hack 4. Pre-decide your exits and your aftercare. Toxic interactions don't just happen in the moment, they echo. Your body carries it into the next hour, the next conversation, the next night in bed. If you don't plan the exit, you stay longer than you should. If you don't plan the recovery, you keep re-entering the fight in your head. This is where nervous system language matters. A dysregulated system craves closure. It wants the perfect sentence that makes everything make sense. But with certain people, closure is a moving target. They'll shift the goalposts, rewrite history, or act confused when you set a boundary. That doesn't mean you explained poorly. It means the system is designed to keep you engaged. So you create closure yourself. First, the exit. You choose one of 3 exits depending on the situation. If it's low stakes, the soft exit. I'm going to hop off. We can revisit this later. If it's moderate, the firm exit. This isn't productive. I'm ending this conversation now. If it's high stakes or unsafe, the protective exit. I'm not continuing. Please stop contacting me about this. And you involve support if needed. HR, a manager, a trusted family member, or professional help if the situation crosses into intimidation or abuse. The exit works best when it's short and repeatable. The more you talk, the more you give them handles. Now, the aftercare. People hear that word and think bubble baths. I mean something simpler and more strategic. Help your system return to baseline so you don't stay reactive. 2 minutes. Stand up. Shake your hands out like you're flicking water off your fingers. Look at something far away, then something close, then far again. Let your eyes move. That visual shift signals, we're not trapped. Drink water. Take 10 slow steps. This isn't about being cute. It's about completing the stress cycle so your brain stops acting like the threat is still present. Then you do one mental move. You convert the argument into data. Instead of replaying, you ask, what did I learn about their pattern? What did I learn about my hook? What's my boundary for next time? That turns rumination into training. Now, I promised you that weirdly simple sentence that ends most escalating conversations without a fight. Here it is. I'm not available for this. Say it exactly like that. Not I can't, not I shouldn't, not I'm sorry. I'm not available for this. It works because it's not an accusation. It's not a debate. It's a statement of capacity and access. It also protects your identity. You're not saying, you're bad. You're saying, this interaction is not getting my energy. And when they push, because sometimes they will, you repeat it with minimal variation. I'm not available for this. We can talk when it's respectful. I'm not available for this. I'm going to end the call. I'm not available for this. I'll respond tomorrow. Repetition is not weakness. Repetition is the boundary. Let's stitch all 4 hacks into a system you can actually use, because information without a plan just becomes another thing you should do. Minimum viable version, 2 to 5 minutes total. Next time they come at you, you do the 8-second delay with a neutral buffer. You say, I hear you. You exhale long, and then you use one boundary sentence with a lever. I'm not available for this. That's it. No extra explanation. Then you do 2 minutes of aftercare to stop the mental replay. If you can do only one thing from this whole script, do that. Standard version for most day-to-day situations, you use the delay, then the structure boundary, then the frame reset. It sounds like, let me think for a second. Exhale. I'm happy to talk about the issue, but not in a disrespectful tone. Are we solving or blaming? If it stays messy, you take the firm exit. This isn't productive. I'm ending it. Then aftercare. 10 steps. Eyes far near. Water. Convert to data. This version keeps you human, but not hookable. Upgrade version for high performers who keep running into the same person. Workplace, family system, ongoing contact. This is where you design your environment, so you're not relying on willpower in the heat of the moment. You set access rules ahead of time. You choose channels that reduce volatility, email over calls, written agendas over spontaneous confrontations, public settings over private corners. You document objectively when needed, not to get them, but to protect clarity. You loop in support early instead of late. You schedule difficult conversations at times when your baseline stress is lower, not when you're already depleted. And you practice your 3 exit lines until they come out smooth, because under stress, you don't rise to your ideals. You fall to your rehearsals. The upgrade version also includes a small identity shift. You stop trying to earn permission to have boundaries. You start treating boundaries as basic operating instructions for how to interact with you. Now, one more pattern interruption, because you might be thinking, okay, but what if they explode when I stop engaging? That's real. In psychology, when you stop reinforcing a behavior, it can spike before it dies down. It's sometimes called an extinction burst. Translation: the moment you stop feeding the pattern may try harder, louder texts, sharper comments, guiltier accusations. Not always, but often enough that you should expect it. So here's the interruption. If they escalate, your job is not to match their volume. Your job is to become more boring. Calm voice, short sentences, repeat the boundary. Exit. I'm not available for this. I'm ending the conversation. We can revisit later. You're basically refusing to provide the emotional fireworks that keep the loop alive. And let's add nuance, because there's a difference between someone having a bad day and someone consistently making you feel small. A healthy person can hear a boundary, get a little uncomfortable, and adjust. A boundary pusher treats your boundary as an insult. That difference matters. Your response doesn't have to be cruel. It has to be accurate. Also, some situations are more than toxic. If there's intimidation, threats, stalking, or physical safety concerns, don't try to win with communication tricks. Prioritize safety and support. Now let's make this feel natural in real life. Here are a few voice-ready lines you can borrow without sounding scripted. When they bait you, I'm not going to take that bait. When they twist your words, that's not what I said. I'm going to be precise. Here's what I mean. When they demand an immediate answer, I'm not answering on the spot. I'll get back to you. When they go personal, I'm willing to talk about the issue, not insults. When they guilt you, I hear your feelings. My answer is still no. When they try to corner you with a false choice, those aren't my only options. Here's what I can do. When you're done, I'm stepping away now. Say them slowly. The power isn't in the words, it's in the nervous system behind the words. Remember the project manager from earlier? His win wasn't that the colleague suddenly became kind. His win was that her usual tactics stopped producing a reaction. In meetings, when she did the concern jab, he'd pause, look at his notes, and say, if you have a specific concern, email it and I'll address it. For now, we're on the agenda. No heat, no defense, just structure. After a few weeks, she redirected her energy elsewhere, not because he dominated her, because the payoff disappeared. That's the real definition of handling toxic people without a fight. You're not wrestling them. You're making the pattern unprofitable. Let's recap in plain language. You delay your first real sentence so your body doesn't speak for you. You stop over-explaining and start structuring with clear boundaries that include a next step. You step out of their trap by naming the frame instead of fighting inside it. And you plan your exits and recovery so the conversation doesn't rent space in your head all night. If you want to make this immediately practical, pick one line you'll use this week and rehearse it 5 times today. Not because you're weak, because your brain loves familiar pathways, and rehearsal builds them on purpose. If you want, drop a comment with the hardest type of person for you to deal with. Someone who nitpicks, someone who guilt trips, someone who plays the victim, someone who turns everything into a competition. I'll read through and I can make a follow-up with exact scripts for each pattern. And if you want more psychology-based tools that protect your peace without turning you into a robot, you know what to do. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. The old advice was built for a world where you picked one lane, stayed in it, and slowly became the person who does that. But the future doesn't reward single-lane certainty the way it used to. It rewards people who can move across domains without losing credibility. People who can learn fast, translate between groups, and build things that don't fit inside one job title.